Well, how is everybody's Mercury retrograde going? We're still in the heart of that mercurial dance cycle, and I know that half of my recent journey, actually, let's see, yes, the last little bit, a week and a half of my journey. My wife and I took 17 states, driving around the country, visiting family and friends. And this behind me is one of the areas where we visited, called Bryce Canyon, down in northern Arizona area. This particular Mercury retrograde cycle it has an intensity to it in the fact that when you look at how Mercury retrograde cycles happen, they cover a certain amount of degrees in a certain amount of time. They happen 3 times a year. But when the degree movement over the 3-week window, approximately 3-week window of the Mercury retrograde cycle happens, is contained within a narrow parameter of degrees. And this one looks like it basically moved from 16 degrees of Taurus back to the very end of 5 degrees of Taurus. That's essentially about 10 degrees, which is not very much. If I look at the other 2 Mercury retrograde cycles for this year, actually this is the second one for the year because we had the first one in January, which moved from actually late 2022, covered about 20 degrees, and the last one covers about 12, 14 degrees or so. Anyway, when that degree movement that Mercury traverses during its Mercury is narrow, it means that there's a focus of energy that is where this mercurial retrograde cycle is transpiring. And when that focus is happening, it says that containment within a narrow band of the zodiac is taking place. And so there's the intensity, or the, shall we say, the lack of focus, Mercury retrograde after all, that is underway is not, it isn't as, it doesn't cover the wider parameter of possibilities that sometimes is the case. Anyway, we're still in the Mercury retrograde cycle until the 15th of this month, so it'll be the beginning of the week after this next one, I believe. Yes, the beginning of next week. The things that happen this particular week right now for us, when I looked at all the potentials that these planetary configurations were giving us, the one that stands out is the Sun holding hands or dancing with Uranus at about 18, 19 degrees of Taurus. One might be inclined to ponder the solar effect. That's that driving energy of life. That's what the sun is. And how might, there's a couple different avenues that the Uranian factor brings into that equation of this life vitality. Our sun in Taurus is going to potentially lean toward. And some of us, they're going to tune into that idea of Uranus's unpredictability, or the essence of something that is not entirely easily able to put one's finger on as this is what's taking place. And uh, this is a possibility for that Uranian signature to play with our vitality in the realm of Taurus, which is, what do we own? What is the value that life presents for us, and what is of value? And you can kind of, if you throw that unpredictable Uranian part into that equation, one might sense that, and particularly right now, while your Mercury is in retrograde, we may be suddenly inspired, because that is another one of the Uranian factors. Things suddenly take place to get something, to buy something, to be intrigued to grasp a hold of something that we want to own. However, due diligence would be extremely helpful here to investigate it. Think outside the box if you can. Is there longevity to what this thing that you're attracted to is going to supply you with? Are there idiosyncrasies potential within that item that you really, really desire that, perhaps you're not exactly clear on or not seeing effectively as what that might be? Welcome to Mercury retrograde. Is someone trying to sell you a bill of goods? I would really invite you to listen between their words, not the words that they're saying, but what is the metal, the met, that is behind why it is they are trying to include you in the purchase or the accumulation of these items. There's another side to Uranus that doesn't get quite as much press, shall we say, and that is that Uranus can be seen as Prometheus, the great awakener. There is a potential here that our solar vitality stands at the precipice of some kind of an awakening experience that's just awaiting our tuning into it. Now, remember that unpredictability factor that I was talking about with Uranus? Uranus shakes things up. And sometimes, actually quite often, that awakening experience that I'm talking about here requires something to be shaken, to be, put into that slightly off or extremely off kilter situation so that we aren't, following that, tried and true path that we've always been on, because that tried and true path, and during a Mercury retrograde cycle, this is maybe just a little bit more significant, is like, so many thoughts, colliding with each other in our minds right now. Trying to put together words that are meaningful when we talk with other people. And even as I'm doing this one, there's a lot, that I experienced on this recent journey around the country because I had time to think. I put astrology not entirely on the background, but I stopped doing the celestial chatters, except for once when I was in Kentucky. And basically was tuned into the wide variety of the environment that we live within, not just here in the United States, but on planet Earth. And at the same time, I was tuned into a long range workshop that I'm doing with Alberto Violdo and Bruce Lipton on the, what should we call it? The underpinnings of consciousness. Probably a good way to put it. And doing a much deeper dive into what is it that is animating me, and as such, how tuned in am I to the connection to everything else that exists as aspects of the me that I'm in the process of discovering. We each have this, but this is a question that you personally must present to yourself. You know, who are you? You know, is everything that I am contained within this physical body? Might there be more? I'm just throwing these questions out that, these are factors that each one of us in our life walk here on Earth should meditate upon. This week, that unpredictability factor, it has the opportunity to awaken us to things that we may not have, really given a lot of thought to. And that's, irony of ironies. Mercury retrograde cycles, good times for meditation, personal inflection, and not being so easily distracted by all the different pulls that life may seem to want us to indulge into. An excellent time to have some personal reflection. There's no guarantee that the light will come on to such an extent that we have a finer understanding of ourselves, but the potential for steps in that direction during a Mercury retrograde cycle, that's the energy that's available. And as we come out of the Mercury retrograde cycle in, after the 15th, after the 14th, 15th of this month, we're invited to, at that point, test out some of the insight that you gleaned during your meditative investigations at this time, to see, who else in my circle of friends tunes into these or similar energy quotients of what life is about. It's compare notes, because each of us represents quite particularly aspects that may, on the surface seem divergent from one another, but are required one with another in broadening our perspective of what this life adventure can be about as we relinquish some of the past previous ideas about what it is we thought the life experience was about that did not include the incorporation of the perspective others present to us and share with us as we share with them. Life is about growth. Are you growing still, or have you settled into a rut thinking that, this is the meaning of life? Here's the Sabian symbol for that Sun Uranus conjunction that happens this week. A new continent rising out of the ocean. I hope you can feel that potential there. The keynote, the surge of new potentiality after the crisis. I don't know if you sense this or not, but right now on planet Earth, what it is that a large percentage, or maybe a vocally perspective of humanity is creating is crisis. Unsustainable growth, which is not possible. The symbol need hardly be commented upon. When the mind has been emptied and light has been called upon to purify the consciousness freed from its attachment and contaminations, a new release of life can emerge out of the infinite ocean of potentiality, the virgin space. You have to ask yourself, what will it be used for? Because this is the fourth stage symbol, we find in it a suggestion of how to approach whatever new phase of life has been not only hoped for, but actually confirmed. The technique is simply to allow the infinite potential to operate in unconstrained spontaneity. This means to have reached a state in which the conscious, rational ego is no longer a controlling factor. And there's a resounding tone in the air. It is Uranus saying, wake up. I'm rattling your cage so that you can see alternatives. Wake up. Compare your notes with those of others. There's a reason why we are brought together in each moment, because we each have unique pieces of this life puzzle that are required by each of us to expand our awareness of what it means to grow as a soul being here in this earth environment, to allow something new to transpire that hasn't transpired before. Wake up. That's all I have for this week. I know there are other things, but that's all I'm going to share. Until next week, I'm home, by the way. Welcome to the adventure. Take some chances. Mercury's still retrograde, so perhaps just a little caution in, running out there, running off at the tongue. Personal inflection and meditation. Enjoy the ride. Ciao.